And, ignorance is bliss because I had no idea what I was getting myself into. But so why the fact that I ran these 52 marathons is important to what I do now is it has created a podium of integrity for me to say to people, look, the impossible is possible.
Welcome to The Reluctant Medium, where we cover the gamut of out there conversations. With an open mind and a curious heart, we want to talk about it all. From psychic phenomena and energy medicine to beings from other star systems and out-of-body experiences. You'll find a great balance between grounded science-backed topics and others that science hasn't quite caught up to yet. I'm your host, Dr. Maria Rothenberger, a psychotherapist by trade and a reluctant spirit baby communicator. And hey, even though I'm a medium, I'm not buying everything folks are selling. I just have a voracious appetite to know more about what I call the world of the weird. Join us on your favorite podcast platform or watch on YouTube at The Reluctant Medium. I'll see you there. Hey everyone, welcome to the Reluctant Medium podcast. Today's guest is phenomenal. I can't wait to talk with Karl Gruber because I mentioned to you before, Karl, that I was researching your work and I went down the rabbit hole. I was like, oh my God, he knows this and this and this and this and this. And so I'm having trouble narrowing it down, but I think I figured it out. We can go into the masses of what you do, but I really want to focus on a couple of things. But first, if you're able to say just like a mini bio, who are you? What do you do? How did you come to do what you do?
Yeah, awesome. This is so cool to be on your show. Thank you, Maria. I'm going to walk through the rest of the day with my head up high going, I'm freaking phenomenal. I love it. So thanks for the boost. But yeah, so I guess you could say I'm kind of a Renaissance man. I've been that way pretty much my whole life. I grew up way back in the last century. And I went through a hippie era. I was a hippie for a long time. And that, kind of that mentality has hung with me. And I've been a long time, a wild and crazy bachelor. I got into radio as a professional disc jockey for 20 plus years, a production director, that type of thing. Just loved doing it, loved being behind this microphone. And so that kind of led to two-pronged expertise that I've done. Being in radio, I found that I would come home in the morning and drink beer and eat pizza because I thought it was late at night, and then I'd go to bed and I started to gain weight. And I had friends who became runners. So ever since then, I have gone running on a daily basis for decades on end and run a lot of marathons. And then I also, just like you, I was curious. I want to know more about this world. I grew up in an agnostic household, never spoke about God, which is very unusual in this society. But what that did is it allowed me to have a blank slate so that when it came to spiritual things and metaphysical things, I was able to grab a hold of things on my own and form my own judgments and just follow where all the information led me. And it's taken me a good place. I became what I call a disciple of positive possibility power thinking. And it went all the way back when I was younger. I started reading the classic, the Foundation, The Power of Positive Thinking by Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. And from there, it snowballed on. I went on to all the other Napoleon Hill and on, and Charles Haanel, and then the Deepak Chopras of the world, Wayne Dyers and Tony Robbins, on, and really got into that. And finally, at one point, about around 2010, 2011, I found out I could become a certified law of attraction life coach. I went through a year-long certification program, and I haven't looked back since. Podcasting, radioing, running, and attracting all the things in the world that I love to do and be and have. That's all.
Oh, that's all. Right. This is what I mean. You do so much that we could talk about that I'm so fascinated by. Well, thank you for that. Today, I really want to talk about, you mentioned the running. And so I want to come back full circle to that. But I mentioned before we hit record today that I got to see an interview with you and Dr. Joe Vitale, who was on the movie The Secret. Mm-hmm. And you talked about this epic running adventure really that you had, and the theme kept coming up of blind faith, because this wasn't just, okay, I'm gonna run for a year. It was quit my job, I'm driving 60,000 miles. I'm like, how do you, and there were some things that you had to trust along the way, right? And one of the things that I like to talk with folks about is because we're in this society where, now I'm a mental health therapist by training. We're in this society where everything needs to be controlled. I have to plan for this, I have to plan for that. And there's so much anxiety and worry. And what if this bad thing happens? What if this bad thing happens? So when you talked about blind faith, like, I just know it's all well. I knew I needed to talk about that with you within this context we can use of this running experience. But if you can first talk about what happened there, like what made you go into that whole adventure, and what was the adventure?
Yeah, this is a great question, and a great topic. We'll go back again with my daily running. I had become a member of the Leukemia Society of America's marathon training group, where you raised money for leukemia research and you ran 26.2-mile races in order to find a cure for leukemia. And this is way back in 1994, 95, I was doing this. And they assigned you to a patient who had leukemia, so you could understand. Well, I met a little 5-year-old boy, Glenn Miller Jr. from Logan, Ohio, and he was healthy and everything, but within a year he was dead from leukemia. And so I was a wild and crazy disc jockey battler and running every day. And as I mentioned, power positive, power possibility, power thinker. And one day I was running out in the countryside. I used to own a home way out in the beautiful southeastern Ohio countryside. And I'm on a dirt road out there one morning, and I just got this, the mist is coming up at sunrise, and I'm running 6 miles. And I got this idea. I know, I'll run a marathon a week for 52 straight weeks and raise money for leukemia research. And, ignorance is bliss, because I had no idea what I was getting myself into. But so why the fact that I ran these 52 marathons is important to what I do now is it has created a podium of integrity for me to say to people, look, the impossible is possible. I can do this. So from May 5th, 1996, starting with marathon number 1 at the Cleveland, Ohio Marathon, and finishing at number 52 at the Big Sur in Carmel, California, I became the 9th man in the world to do it. But believe me, it did take pure blind faith to do it. I don't know if I was just dumb or I was just born with this blind faith. I just knew I could do this. And so when I locked the door to my home, my beautiful home I own in Hocking County, Ohio, to take my golden retriever, Bo, up to my parents' house in Cleveland to go live with them when I was on the road for a year, rented out my house for a year. And believe me, Maria, I had not nearly even close to the amount of money I needed to do it. I just went for it. I just did it. And week after week after week after week, and believe me, I had a lot of anxiety and sad, tough times, but then I had a lot of victories when I come across the finish line, and money would show up every week. And plus I raised tens of thousands of dollars through leukemia research along the way. I did radio and television and newspaper and online interviews because the internet was just kicking in 96, 97. And so again, it was a gargantuan task that I had blind faith. I just knew I could do it. And during that year of going forth, trusting that the universe had my back, and I'm not even sure how I came up with that trust. I mean, from my basic reading and study of positive possibility, power thinking, it was instilled with me. I actually practiced the law of attraction, although I never even heard of that term. In hindsight, I could see in the weeks when I doubted and I was in a negative, misaligned place, the universe sent more of that to me. But when then I kicked in with that blind faith and determination, I said, I am going to do this. I'm driving through North Dakota on a 14-hour drive by myself going, why am I doing this? And I'd get to the city and they had a free place for me to stay, and people were donating money and everything. And that's why this is important. I mean, it is possible to believe in the unseen. It's more the classic line, I'll see it when I believe it. Well, I believed it right up front and I accomplished it.
Yeah, that's astounding. I want to dig into those moments when you're driving 14 hours and you're like, what the frig am I doing? What was there an undercurrent of like, and I know all is well, or did you ever spiral down into this like where a lot of people tend to go like, I can't do this. What am I thinking? Or how was that for you?
Yeah, and I won't lie. Yeah, I mean, absolutely, I did spiral down, but there's something within me that this natural ability to, and being a law of attraction life coach that I am, there's a LOA process called pivoting. When you catch yourself in a negative place, and you're not thinking what you really want, you have the free will, the power to pivot on the spot 180 degrees. And Joe Vitale and I talked about this, and I said, I have free will to change my mind and pull myself from the valley back up to the peak where I want to be. And I said, you know what? I am going to do this. I feel great about this. I don't care if I don't have the money right now that I need to go to the next marathon and the next marathon. I know it will show up, and it really, really did, week after week after week, month after month, for 52 straight weeks. And this can be utilized. You don't have to run a marathon a week. You could maybe have a passion to knit a quilt for missing in action, or whatever your passion is, or skateboard around the world or something like that. It could be, it doesn't have to be something gargantuan, something you have a passion for and you have blind faith and believe that you really can do, because Abraham of Hicks says, there's nothing you cannot be, do, or have. And it really is true.
I completely agree with you and not like, this is epic, right? This running, and to be clear, for folks watching / listening, 52 marathons in 52 weeks. It's mind blowing. That is huge.
To think that every week about mile 23, this is mind blowing. What am I doing? And then I come across the finish line and a couple days to recuperate and got up and go. Now I struggled through a couple mile run this morning, but you know what? It's in the books. I did it. I was the 9th guy in the world to do it.
That is amazing. Also, at nowadays, maybe, 2 miles feels like, it's a lot less than that, but given where you are, I don't know how your body is right now, but maybe it feels like, just as challenging, or maybe you won't challenge yourself to that degree. It feels less to me like I'm going to challenge myself to do this, and more like I'm living in spirit. I'm inspired to do this. I'm just doing this.
Yeah, you nailed it right there. And I think as I've progressed and grown as a man, that especially with what I do, I'm a deep student of A Course in Miracles. That's really one of my primary focuses, and my own podcast is centered around A Course in Miracles and the law of attraction. And I've realized that, it is possible. You really can.
You can. And the other note that I'm picking up on is the lack of, needing to control all the things that I mentioned before. Like, there really is a letting, okay, I know it's coming. There's just a settledness.
Yeah, and that's really cool that you picked up on that, because I mean, if you would have said that to me during the year of my marathoning, the need to not control it, somehow, some way I picked up on that, and I knew I would be provided. But now here I am 25 years later, and I know that more than ever. And when I work with my life coaching clients, I try to transfer that to them. And I want people to know that they are worthy. They are truly worthy of having the greatest dreams that most people are afraid to allow themselves to go after. I have found with so many people, and I know you have, most people don't feel worthy of having their greatest dreams and goals and desires manifest into the reality of their life.
You're absolutely right. Yep. I've run into the same thing. And I was in the same spot myself. I know that we've talked a little bit about that. My history, my former podcast was about fertility stuff. Briefly, that same feeling that you had of like, I just know that it's coming, even though it's anxiety provoking. I had the same exact experience with adopting our first son. Adoption is for this particular program was like $45,000. We didn't have $45,000.
Oh,
We spent $40,000 on fertility treatments and had no baby. We didn't have $45,000 for adoption, but I knew that it was going to either show up or it was going to work out in some way. And it turns out through a series of events, we only had to pay $7,000.
oh, wow. Yeah.
So I just
Blind
had a
faith.
knowing, blind faith. And this is why I wanted to talk with you about that. What do you teach, or how do you coach your clients around having that sort of settledness? First, okay, let's say they've come over the I am worthy hump. How do you teach them the, letting go, letting God thing, or letting go, letting universe, or trusting, or blind faith? How do you teach that?
Well, you really can go into the spiritual realm. First of all, we have, since the time we were born, we are trained in egotistical thinking that you'll never have that. Who are you to think that you'll be like that? That type of thing. And we're trained that there's only limitation and separation. But if you can get past that and do, maybe even dive in a little bit in your spiritual studies and understand that the real reality is eternal, unchanging, unconditional love and oneness. And when you can hook into that, and this is the basis of my studies of A Course in Miracles, and I think once you hook into that, that's where you find the blind faith, because you understand there is more than what you see in front of you, and that our real self too. And as you get older and maybe you get in touch with your mortality, hey, maybe I might not be in this body, real long. You say, well, gosh, maybe there really is something beyond that. And if you pursue your studies and you talk to beautiful people like you and so many other wonderful people you and I both had on our podcast, you're going to find out that true reality exists in an unseen realm, that is where the blind faith comes in. One of the beautiful lines from A Course in Miracles is, I go forth into my day with mighty unseen companions. And my mighty unseen companions, that my spirit guides, or whatever you want to call them, I call them Team Karl. So I literally know when I go out the door, I say, all right, Team Karl, let's go. We're ready to go. And I know I have my mighty unseen companions with me every step of the way.
That is fantastic. I love that, Team Karl. And they're telling you you're phenomenal, with a sing-song voice too. You can't forget that. Jazz hands, sing-song. Oh, well, that actually takes me into the next topic that I wanted to cover today. We are switching gears slightly, but it's related because you're talking about the oneness. Mm-hmm. And you and I have a shared in elevating the vibration of the planet. Yes. Your podcast is called World Awakenings, and we belong to a network called Ethereal Network, which is fantastic. We're hopeful that we are going to be raising the vibration of the planet through our oneness, which you just talked about. And the question that I have for you comes from my own work, and I wondered your thoughts on this. So I do spirit baby mediumship, right? So I talk with folks who are struggling to conceive, or who've had losses or lost children, and I connect with those souls on the other side. The souls that are looking to come earthside now, a lot of them are talking about coming for the sole purpose of raising the vibration of the planet. And so I wondered if you can just riff on that for a bit. What's your focus on this awakening, this world awakening, and raising the vibration of the planet? I'm hoping you can talk about your focus or intent on that.
Yeah, this is also another beautiful topic. As a matter of fact, out of 111 episodes on my own podcast, my main question I have asked almost all my guests is, why now are the people of the world awakening to all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening? And through having guests like me, I've had mediums, I've had channels on, I've had master teachers, I've had ascended masters, I've talked to galactic beings through the channels, I've talked to Othello, the Syrian from Sirius B that comes through Christina Hill. My personal mentor, Christy Whitman, now channels the council, a council of ascended masters who come through her. And she has been on, and the council have been on my show. And so it is time. This is one thing that we're noticing, and especially you and myself, the guests that we have has showed us that the vibration of mankind throughout all of history has been vibrating at an incredibly low, unproductive, destructive area for millennia. And now is the time the mankind and the soul is awakening and raising out of this darkness to a higher plane. As a matter of fact, many of my guests said that mankind is now in a phase of transmuting from the 3D to the 5D. And we're transferring from carbon-based beings to crystalline bodies. And so this is interesting. Now, of course, since time is not actually real at all, it's only an illusion. So I can't say what time it is, but it's very, very obvious. The people and masters that have been on my show that you and I both connect with, they're more prevalent than ever before, because even those channeled beings and the mediums like you, who the people come through, they'll tell you it is time. And many of those coming who are about to be born are star seeds, and they know it's time and it's a change. And I don't know about you, but I'm as excited as heck about that.
Oh, I am too. I am. And then, of course, being the healthy skeptic that I am, I'm turning around looking for evidence, though. Like, what do you see anything outside of folks channeling galactic beings and things? Do you see anything tangible in your world that indicates, vibration's actually coming up? Because I don't like the news, but my husband does. It's terrible. I see terrible things, hear terrible things. What's the evidence that you're picking up on, or are you, that there's actually some improvement here?
Well, no, I am picking up on it, but you're exactly right. I mean, if you're a person who watches the news all the time and everything. I mean, this is one of them. I have a flat screen TV. It's not even hooked up. I haven't watched television in my own personal abode for years now. And so as mankind is raising its vibrational level to a different dimension and level of love and eternal oneness and peace and truth, the ego, which is the way this world is based, has become more and more vicious, because it knows that people are awakening and raising their vibration and seeing the illusion of what it's offering the world of wars and school shootings and rapes and on a daily basis bullying and that type of thing. And bullying is so prevalent still in this world, and we're judgmental. I mean, just go to work or to school and literally catch yourself, and you have judgment. Say, oh man, that girl, God, what does she think wearing that today? What is the matter with that girl? That's just a judgment. And we have judgment after judgment after judgment. And so this wears you down. And just simply from the people that I now interview and talk to, you can see that there is that raising of awareness. But again, the ego is going to start throwing more and more and more at you. But I'll tell you what, I had about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, Carol Collins, the Pittsburgh medium, on, and I've spent an entire weekend at a spiritual retreat with her and her cadre of beings that come through her. Her teachers, Yeshua mainly and Seth, they teach that, if you catch yourself dwelling and focusing on something that you don't feel in alignment, turn away from it. You don't have to pay attention. It doesn't mean your head has to be in the sand. I'm aware of what's going on in the world, but by continually staying focused on it by law, the law of attraction, the world, the universe must send you more. It says, oh my God, I can't believe there's another school shooting and that type of thing. And this extends to the collective consciousness of mankind. And unfortunately, we have about 8 billion people on the planet. Still, the vast majority of the world, the collective consciousness is dwelling in a negative, vibrating place of judgment and attack and retribution. And boy, oh boy, if the world stays that way, they're going to just see it continue like it has for thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of years. But it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah. I mean, You just touched on something that I'm going to bring down to the minutia of everyday life, because I'm noticing that I'm doing this. And maybe you can coach me around this. Okay, my husband loves the news. I can't stand the news. But I am judging
Mhm.
that he is watching the news.
Mhm.
So you're saying turn away from it. Accept that he's doing what he's doing, and I can turn away and do my own thing. Is that
If you
right?
do that, again, I mean, you know what's going on in the world, but if you turn away with it and focus on a productive, loving, forgiving area, by law, the universe must send more to you into your life to be forgiving and joyful and happy and abundant and healthy about. It's universal eternal law. It has to be that way. And if more and more and more and more people start taking that tact, in which we know they are, that's why we see the universe of mankind actually awakening to all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening. And more people are like that. And you know what? We live in a beautiful time, because if you and I, let's say this technology was available back in the 1600s, or we were just chatting in a town center like this, we would have been burned at the stakes like witches. Now we can openly talk about stuff like this, and what a freedom.
Oh, for sure. My young son, my oldest son, the one that only cost $7,000 to adopt, which is amazing. He said to me recently, "Are you a witch?" Because I have all these crystals and things in my office. I was like, I wish. I wish I was that cool. But yeah, we would have been burned at the stake for these musings. So yes, gratitude for the fact that we have the freedom to talk about these kinds of things now.
It's a cool time to be alive, and this is maybe why some of those future souls coming into bodies in the world, while they're excited to be here during this time. It's a time of ascension for mankind.
Yes, yes. And that same feeling, gosh, I'm bringing it full circle without intending to, that same feeling of I'm trusting that all is well. When you're doing this 52 marathons for 52 weeks, it's scary, and I'm leaning in anyway. That's the feeling that I get from these souls. They're like, oh, being in a body, this sucks. And it's all is well. I know that all is well. And I have a role to play, and I'm excited to do that. It's a really cool, settled feeling. I have a feeling, though, that folks are going to, what you said before about the universe or the lower vibrational stuff popping up more when you try to be high vibration, that it pops in a little bit more. I have a feeling that these souls that are coming in are going to feel that very strongly, that lower vibration really trying to pull them down.
Yeah. But with them here, they will be an integral part of the entire unit of raising that vibration. But, I was just thinking when you were mentioning, lower vibrating unproductive area. I don't know if you've ever read Dr. David Hawkins' book, Power versus Force. And you should. It's right up there with some of the books like Abraham's Asking and Is Given. But he's the one who came up with kinesiology. What is it? Where you can, if your arm, if he pushes down on and says a statement, it'll prove if your arm gives away, it's false. If it stays strong, then it's true. I forget the term for that. But in his book, Power versus Force, he has what he calls a map of the scale of consciousness of mankind, and he has it throughout the history of mankind. For most of the history of mankind, it has vibrated at the number 200 or below, just below 200. In baseball, we call that the Mendoza line. If you're batting below 200, you're not doing so well. But I think it was in the mid or late 2000s that all of a sudden mankind's scale of consciousness took a big jump up to 209, and we've seen that. And you go all the way, he has a scale all the way up to pure enlightenment, which is 1,000. And he has shown that mankind has the consciousness, collective consciousness has taken a big jump. And if you get a chance, study that. It's really, really interesting.
Yeah, thanks for the reminder. I can't remember where I heard about that book, but yeah, I've done muscle testing.
Muscle testing, that's it.
Yeah, but on yourself you can use
Yes.
It can ring up. But yes, it is astounding. And that is where I love things like that, because they're so practical and useful. And it's like, you can't explain that. And yet here it is working. It's phenomenal. Yeah, I will add that to a resource on the show notes here, along with your books. You have one that folks can get by signing up for your mailing list, right? Can you talk about that one?
I have, well, in 2014, I wrote a short ebook called The Three Pillars, a simple 3-step process to manifest positive and permanent change in your life. And what that was is, I had just a couple years before that become a certified law of attraction life coach. I was working with clients, and I couldn't figure out why people, including myself, couldn't manifest the good, positive, loving, healthy, abundant things in their life on a consistent basis. Sure, I could manifest $100 here or a new job there or whatever, that type of thing, but I couldn't do it consistently. And I started to look at, what does it take to become a consistent manifester? And it really fell back to my studies of true spirituality and A Course in Miracles. I finally realized that you have to have a rock solid personal foundation based on walking upright in the integrity of the universal, eternal laws of love, unconditional love, and oneness and unity. And what this does is it raises your personal vibration to a higher, productive, loving place. And the universe responds to that. And so I looked especially at high-profile people like movie stars and professional athletes. We see them living this ultimate life, oh my gosh, I wish I lived a life like that movie star, a mansion in Beverly Hills. And all of a sudden, we see this still every day in the news. Somebody's life comes crashing down, and this movie star was arrested for blah, blah, blah. And that politician, oh my gosh, he's been indicted for whatever, on and on and on. And all of a sudden, those magical lives they had came crashed down in the dust. So I realized the 3 pillars of your life are mental, physical, and spiritual. And of course, a pillar's function is to hold your house, your life upright, strong, without, coming and crashing down. Well, if even one of those pillars has a crack in it, because you're following the ego's, ideal of, judgment, attack, and me, that type of thing, you're going to form a crack in one of those pillars, possibly all 3. And then your whole house becomes shaky. And if you don't fix those cracks in your pillars, then you come crashing down. So I patched up my pillars, and I still have to work on my pillars every day. It's an ongoing process, and realize that once that my house, my life stands on a rock solid personal foundation based with the keystone of true forgiveness, then you can become a consistent co-creator to create the life you love to live and live the life you love. And it works. It really works. And consequently, I wrote and published last year and released a full-length book on that three pillars ebook. It's called True Spirituality and the Law of Attraction, a beautiful symbiotic relationship. And that's available now.
Perfect. I will link to both of those. As you're talking, I'm like, ooh, I'm looking at the pillars that I'm working on. I'm like, oh yeah, no wonder. I need to be working on those things.
And like I said, it's a daily process. You have to pay attention to each of your pillars and say, oh, what did I do? Oh, I just had a bad thought and judgment there. Man, there's a little crack in it. Well, I better patch it up.
Yeah. I didn't realize actually how important, because I'm a mental health therapist, right? So I'm very focused on mental wellness, emotional wellness, and now spiritual wellness. But for the past 3 years, I've done a whole tarot spread for myself for the whole year. And every single time it mentions physical wellness. And I'm like, nah. I'll be fine.
And I'll make a statement about that, because, as in spiritual studies, we realize that we're really not this body. The body is an illusion. And I really am in oneness with all that is, with God, or whatever you want to say, Allah, Krishna, whatever. And you think, well, if my body is just an illusion, well, why should I take care of it? Here's the fact. You're here in this body. That's not going to change. You're living within this illusion. Within this illusion of this life of Karl Gruber. And in order to live the life as well as you can and healthy and happy, take care of that physical pillar, whether it's exercise or good nutrition or meditation or whatever it takes. Because if you can stay healthy and fit, it generally correlates to a happier, healthier, longer, more enjoyable life. And who doesn't want that?
Who doesn't want that? Right. Especially folks like us who need to live a long time to influence the vibration of the planet up.
Yeah.
Karl, thank you so much. I feel like I had a little mini coaching session. I appreciate it.
You're so sweet. I really enjoyed it. I love your curiosity, and your curiosity is leaning towards helping the world awaken to beautiful, loving things. And what you do is just fabulous. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you. Likewise, I appreciate your wisdom, and looking forward to continuing with the Ethereal Network, raising the vibration of the planet. Yay, go us. I'm hoping you got a useful nugget or two from today's podcast episode. May you be well, and I'll see you next time.